Welcome to BQ Prime, and you're watching Earnings Conversation with Lupin. And joining me is Ramesh Swaminathan, who is the ED and Group CFO at the company. Ramesh, let me start with the first question, which everyone wants to know. Your revenues have fallen on a quarter-to-quarter basis by 5.5%. Where did the sales go wrong?
It is, so essentially the two main markets actually both saw reduction, both America and India. India, because the fourth quarter is always the weakest, so to speak. So this is, in line with what happened in the past as well. So there was a reduction out there. But America, of course, it came down from the $201 million that it saw last quarter to about $181 million. This is on the back of several reasons. The first of this is essentially, you could say, there was a recall of losartan, because of impurities, NDMA impurities. So there was a recall, and there was, of course, an inability to sell those products to the market, which resulted, in fact, a reduction. That apart, there has been price erosion on the OST front. So we have a number of products where you saw price erosion, including Brovana, because we run out of exclusivity period out there. We have products like levothyroxine, which actually there was again a reduction. But the more important thing is the mainstay of our products, the albuterol, continued to gain market share. The market share is close to about 22-23%. So essentially, whilst there was a reduction, it is also because of the fact that the entire range of cephalosporin products or acute therapy products, there was no sale whatsoever, in this particular in this quarter, because virtually, the market is absent, so to speak, for the last couple of years. For these reasons, you found that the overall, the sales in America to be lower than what was the historical past.
Now, we've been hearing about this price erosion in the US market, which not just for you, but the pharma companies as well. Where do you see this bottoming out? What kind of price erosion, what range of price erosion did we see in this fourth quarter?
Yeah, you can't actually take a broad brush and paint everything with it. It really is going to be specific to a portfolio of products. In a general sense, it is between 8 and 12%, so to speak. So it is of a pretty high order, and that's impacting the overall OSD business in America.
You were guiding that if you have a run rate of $800 million in a year, you will be able to use leverage to scale it up further. Do you see that as a challenge given the current circumstances?
Well, of course, we need to kind of recalibrate our the entire position, because, as I said, OSD position seems to be it is under some kind of headwinds at this stage. So we are looking at avenues for cutting costs on all fronts, be it SG&A expenses, be it in fact the kind of issues that we have at the plant level, where there is considerable idle time because of lack of usage. We have kind of invested ahead of the curve. We're kind of addressing all of this as well.
I know that's something which you've been speaking about the idle time in many of the plants. When do you expect that to recover and the scale up happening in these plants?
There are a number of initiatives that we are taking, to address a lot of this. So, which is essentially including, in fact, the idle time at the plant level, cutting down on costs out there, perhaps addressing the footprint. You're looking at other inefficiencies that are kept into the system over time, addressing that as well. But all of this takes time, as you would recognize it. So we expect things to kind of settle over the next 2 to 3 quarters. Until then, there is going to be pain.
What about the Indian market? You were guiding for a double-digit growth in the Indian market. Here, we also saw some slowdown happening in the Q4 for Indian market. In fact, a degrowth happening in Q4 on a quarter-to-quarter basis in the Indian market. What is the challenges that you're seeing in the Indian market?
Indian market, we are doing fairly well. We are growing close to the double digits. There has been a reduction only in the fourth quarter because of the fact that fourth quarter is always lower than, it's the weakest quarter, so to speak. We're fairly bullish about our prospects in the Indian market, and there's no reason for us to think, for you to think otherwise.
Okay. What about the Goa plant? It came out of the inspection. It was ready for making products. Where are we on that? Any update on how many products are going to be made? or going to come out from the Goa
We
plant?
have a pipeline which is still to be approved of 109, 110 products, of which about 23, 24 comes from the Goa plant itself. I would expect, given the fact that we are out of OAI status, I would expect things to start moving now. And gradually we would see products being approved for sure. It's another question about whether all of these products retain their potency. So to that extent, it is going to be, because a lot of it's been some time before we actually made the submissions, and some of them actually lost potency. It might not be might not garner the same value as it could have, but it had been launched about a couple of years earlier.
You've been guiding for a long time that the second half of FY23 and FY24 will be the best best years for you because of the products which are going to come out, especially Suprep and Titopium and others which are going to come up in the second half of this financial year. Are we on the timeline to launch them in the second half, or is there going to be some delay because of any other issues or headwinds?
Now, Suprep, it's already been approved, so we should not have a problem. It should certainly get launched in fact the third quarter. Spiriva, we're fairly confident about its prospects and about our ability to launch it in the fourth quarter.
And what about Titopium?
That's Spiriva. Titopium
Okay.
is Spiriva.
Okay. And there's also Peglitic-Grastim also, which is expected.
Yeah, we expect the approvals to come, and potentially that could again be a fourth quarter launch.
Okay, but the approvals haven't come in yet. What is the time lag from the time you get approval to the launch?
In a general sense, about a year and a half. It depends on the product really. You can't actually take one broad brush and paint everything with it. You expect both these. Spiriva was submitted quite some time ago. And the CRL that was raised has also been kind of settled. I mean, we have given the explanation for it. So we think things are on course for a launch.
Ramesh, if you look at FY22, almost at least 3 quarters had some kind of impairment or charges or settlement charges which have come in. Is there anything more which is there that can come in and disturb the entire flow for you in FY23? Because in Q2 you have Solosec, and then Q3 Metformin and also Tamivir return charges which were there, and in Q4 you have depreciation amortization of Gravis IP which have come in. Is there any more red flags or this kind of events which may disturb the PA for you in FY23?
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate that we had these one-off items which were at least there in the last 3-4 quarters, so to speak. There have been impairments, of course, on Gavis front. We also had the Glumetza settlement issue which happened. So that was a pretty large amount. We took further impairment of Gavis during the course of this quarter itself. There, of course, have been one-offs in terms of recall of products. We had Glumetza before. We had, that is Metformin. We also had Losartan happening. Unfortunate, it seems to be that we were doubly unlucky in lots of these. We can never program for this. We're taking all the precautions that would be necessary to make sure that it's business as usual and we don't have issues of this kind. And we're fairly, sure about our controls in this regard, but we can never really speak about any one-offs of the kind that you're speaking about in terms of batch failures, or for that matter, if there is going to be a recall. And so these are really dependent on so many other factors.
What about EBITDA margin picture? Means you were aspiring to be close to 20% odd, but you've been sub 15, and that's been a concern for analysts as well. How do you, allay that concern?
Yeah, so essentially, as I would say, EBITDA margins, we have, so essentially a function of 3 things. Essentially, one is the top line, one is the other is essentially the kind of issues that we take to kind of reduce costs and the like, and third is, of course, on the R&D front. Top line was not moving until very recently. Now we have, in fact, a host of things coming up insofar as the complex generics are concerned, including the inhalation space, the complex injectables and biosimilars also. On the cost front, there are several initiatives which are being addressed right now. which are being taken up, including, in fact, correcting a lot of inefficiencies that have crept up into the system over time. All of this will pay fruit, but you'll have to bear with us. It is going to happen over the next 2 to 3 quarters, and you would expect, in fact, results to certainly become much better from the 3rd and 4th quarters onwards.
I'm running out of time, so I have quick 2 questions. One is on update on NCE spin-off, which you've been talking about. When do we see that happening? What kind of impact that will it have on your EBITDA once you do that? And the second one is an update on diagnostics that you have entered. Where do you see scale up of diagnostics now happening, now that we have entrenched players and backed by money entering to diagnostics and hyper competition heating up in this segment?
Yeah, the first, so let me take the diagnostics question. So diagnostic question, it is never going to be the most dominant theme. It is going to be a marginal, so it's an important part, and it will grow in importance over time, but it's never going to be the dominant theme insofar as the India business is concerned. So for example, if it is going to be 10,000 crores of turnover on the India front about 5 years later, it could be potentially about 500 crores, so to speak. It's early days, and given the fact that the market is still fragmented, we believe that there is tremendous potential on this front.
What about hyper competition there? What about
competition? We believe that we have, we would have an edge given our connect with the doctors, and given the fact that there's still a fragmented industry, and on the fact that we would actually bring in, we'll be relying on technology to kind of, which will be the USP insofar as we are concerned.
The final one is on the NCE spin-off, and what kind of impact that
you see? We're still working on that. We have got some interesting propositions on the table. We do expect things to wrap up over the next few quarters.
You expect to be completed by FY23?
Yes.
Ramesh, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for joining us on BT Prime.
Thank you very much.